I'll tell you one of my earliest memories of it being really challenging. I was at North End Elementary School, and I was still very new to the country. So I told you I come from a place where Hmong people got food 3 days out of the week, right? And we were eating French toast sticks and dipping them into syrup, and I thought it was so good. I was really, really enjoying myself. And I noticed when other kids stopped eating and started pointing at me, and I didn't know what was wrong, so I continued to eat. And then I noticed that these kids were copying me, and I was eating with my mouth open. And the whole table stopped eating, and they were laughing at me. And I started, somewhere along the way, I'm stubborn. I didn't want to say one more time that my mom and dad hadn't taught me for the rules of this world. Because if you come from a place where there's never enough to eat, you don't think about eating with your mouth closed or your mouth open. But all these kids were laughing at me, not because they thought they were being cruel, but because they thought they were teaching me something I needed to know for America. But it was in America that pulled me away from the way my mother and my father, my grandmas, the way they've always eaten, the way they taught me how to eat. So I started crying, but I continued to eat, and I choked. And there was this Hmong interpreter, and so they came to take me to the principal's office, and they say, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because they're laughing at the only way I know how to eat." And he said to me, "In this country, you have to do things the way people do them." Gave me more reason to be silent. But that was hard, and things like that were hard all along the way, But when I became, and they continue to be hard, right? I'm at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, and I was really excited because it's not often that really young writers with no literary history, but a book published, they get opportunities like this one, because I'm on faculty at the university, which means I teach, which means I'm a professor of writing, right? When I went, I was really, really excited, and I went to HR to do my paperwork. One of the pieces said that I needed to bring in a passport or either a social security card and an ID. And so I brought in my passport because I wanted to get the deal done in one. And then she said, "Oh, I need your social security card too for payroll purposes." And I didn't think anything of it, so I said, "Okay." But on the day that I'm bringing in my social security card, I get an email, and she goes, "Can you also bring in further proof of citizenship?" I don't know what it is about me that says I'm not an American. And I have to write back and CC the chair of the English department and tell them, "You have in your hand a valid U.S. passport. I don't have other proof of citizenship. Is this something you ask of all incoming faculty, or is it special because of me?" It's very hard to do. Things like this continue to be hard. I spoke at Appleton North, and one of the kids in the back of the class, a new refugee, so there was like 850 in the audience, and we're at the end of a wonderful session. And one of the girls raised her hand, and I said, "You?" And she asked me in Hmong because she couldn't speak English. She says, "Why didn't you write the book in Hmong so I could read it too?" And I answered her in Hmong. And a boy says, "Go home if you're going to use that language." And I had to stand on a stage with lights glaring at me and say, "I'm already home." I fight so hard to belong. So many organizations, they invite me to speak, and they say, "How much do you want?" And I quote the figure, right? Which is what people pay me to speak. And they say, "You're no Garrison Keillor." And I know I'm not Garrison Keillor. He's tall. He has a deep, beautiful voice. He's an old man who's written for many years. But the work I do is no less important. And to fight for that takes a lot of heart. There are three kinds of exhaustion. There's exhaustion of the body. You eat good food, you get lots of sleep, and you're good to go. There is the exhaustion of the mind. You read a good book, you talk to an intelligent person, and you're good to go. It is the exhaustion of the human heart that I fight continuously to be an American. But you know what I understand? I am the Hmong from America. There's Hmong from Thailand, Hmong from Germany, Hmong from China, Hmong from French Guiana, Hmong from all over the world. The stuff that I do is the next chapter in the American story. It is an American contribution to world literature. And that is a title that I take on and I fight to own. And that is who I am. I think this fighting heart of me is very American. Because not in many places around the world do they teach a young kid like me that you can go into the world and that you can change it, influence it, make it better than it was. But in America, we study about Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks and all of those figures in our history books. And we learn that those figures are in there because they tried and they failed and they got up and they tried again. That is the essence of the human story, the American contribution. And that is the work I do. And so it's incredibly hard. Each and every single day. Because I don't know what I'm going to get. I go into all kinds of places, all kinds of spaces. And sometimes it's really hard to be challenged. Challenged for the life that you don't know how to live otherwise. What is home to a country what is home to a girl who comes to a country at the age of 6? What is belong if it is not that look in your eyes when you're looking at me and I'm looking at you and we know that we belong because we're Americans together? Because we're the world's greatest experiment. Because in a place like America, you can just take a kid from a refugee camp, raise her in the projects, give her one of the greatest education that money can buy, give her mics like this one to amplify the strength of a weak voice. That is hard to do.